Hello guys, hope you're really well. Today I'm going to be talking about something that came up on the most recent episode of the Arscast Extra. It's something I've spoken about before, but I find it fascinating that there's a player in the Arsenal squad who's joined the Arsenal squad this summer for £105 million. And yet, I don't think he's the new signing under the most pressure. I think the new signing under the most pressure is Kai Havertz. And today, I'm going to be talking a bit about why I think that is and what it means for him and what Arsenal can do about it. Thank you for watching as ever. Please do like, comment, subscribe. It all really helps as we're trying to grow the channel. So I say it's just me, guys. It's me, an iPhone and a microphone. That's it. The royal we, I suppose. So the first obstacle and the first thing that Havertz is up against is the Chelsea stigma, and it exists. There's a stigma around signing players from Chelsea, and understandably so. It's been a very patchy history for Arsenal. Willian, of course, was the kind of, the nadir. That's the disaster signing. People didn't want him necessarily. They didn't understand the length of the contract, the age of the player, the amount of money he was being paid. There was sort of a lot of concern about the deal when it was done, and that was ultimately borne out. It just didn't work in any discernible fashion. Willian's a really competent football player, and he's come back to the Premier League with Fulham and demonstrated that Arsenal was the wrong club at the wrong time, and the fact that he came from Chelsea obviously didn't help the perception. Was not really a popular figure before he joined the club, certainly not one after he joined the club either. So that weighs quite heavy. There are others, David Luiz. I think David Luiz broadly made a good contribution to Arsenal in his time there, but even so, there were, hot-headed moments, big mistakes. There are probably as many people who really didn't like David Luiz as an Arsenal player as who did. Jorginho came in January, and I think he has shown that there's always a way back. There's always a route into fans' hearts. Smashing the ball into the goal off the back of Emi Martinez's head is one way of achieving that, but I think he's acquitted himself very well since making the move across London. He seems like a really good character to have around the camp. I think there are still people who, aren't his biggest fan or worry about his physicality, but I think he has gone some way towards endearing himself towards the Arsenal fans. That's the task that Kai Havertz has, but the fact he's coming from Chelsea, I think, does make it that bit more difficult. He's also just got a lot to prove. That's the second point, really. This is a guy who has had moments, some really big moments, one in a Champions League final, winning the game for Chelsea against Man City and Porto, but who has not really delivered against the price that was paid for him by Chelsea, the reputation he'd built for himself in Germany. Essentially, he's kind of been in the doldrums, and that's understandable to a certain extent. Chelsea have been going through a very chaotic period, probably not what he envisaged signing for the club. I'm sure they laid him out with a clear plan of, this is how you'll play, this is how we'll play, this is how you'll be used. Instead, they've chopped and changed managers, systems, teammates. Pure chaos for him, and particularly last season. But, like I say, huge amount to prove. People, I think, didn't like this deal when the rumours first broke. I was on social media at the time. I think I reported, along with David Ornstein, about Arsenal's interest in Havertz quite early on. And my replies, wow, they were a sight to behold. People were really unhappy about the prospect of this deal happening. I think equally there were lots of people prepared to show patience and give the recruitment team some credit. They've been wrong in the past about players, Aaron Ramsdale or Ben White, players they didn't necessarily see the same degree of value in that Arsenal did, who've proven themselves subsequently. But there are also people who just said, this guy hasn't done it in the Premier League. Why are we doing this deal? And I think maybe amidst the other deals we've done, the general good feeling around the club, that has sort of been dampened, but it won't take long for it to rear again. You only have to miss a couple of great chances or have a couple of quiet games, and all those doubts will resurface. That is the nature of football discourse, and I think that's another element which adds some pressure to Havertz in this scenario. The thing I think is most important, and the thing that I think he's most under pressure as a consequence of, is the fact that he's replacing a player who was very, very, very good for this team last season in Granit Xhaka. We spoke so often about his limitations. Were we getting everything we could from the player? Was he sort of at a dead end in terms of what more Xhaka could offer as that kind of attacking number 8? And I think sometimes we did that to the detriment of what he was contributing. He was a very, very good Premier League midfielder, and he's not around anymore. It's not like if it's not working with Havertz, we can just drop Granit Xhaka into the starting 11. He gone. In the deeper midfield role, for now, Thomas Partey is still here. If Declan Rice is struggling, if it's not quite clicking, we can stick Thomas Partey straight back in, go back to what we were doing last season. We've got that security blanket. We don't have that at left 8. Even the other options we have beyond Havertz, they're all kind of unknown quantities. Fabio Vieira, Leo Trossard, Emil Smith-Rowe. We've not seen them play that position with any degree of regularity in this Arsenal team. So there's a slight feeling that Havertz kind of needs to hit the ground running. We haven't really got a credible alternative to him in that position. And I think Xhaka was one of our best players last season, part of a very good team. If Havertz does go through a bit of an adaptation, a bit of a teething period, we may pay the price for it. We may suffer for it. Perhaps more so than we would if we had Timber or Rice on the field in those positions. In their positions, I should say. So what do you do? How do you deal with that? It's really interesting because the way I see it, it could go either way. My temptation is to say, well, look, don't rush it with Havertz. This is a huge adaptation for him. He's been playing up front for Chelsea for 2 years. We're now asking him to drop back into midfield and play a highly complicated tactical role, one that will require adjustments from his teammates. We saw Martin Odegaard playing slightly more withdrawn against Manchester United. Declan Rice is going to have to learn all about covering for Havertz. Maybe we shouldn't try and completely reinvent the midfield in one fell swoop. Maybe we'd be better off saying, look, let's stick with Partey at the base. Let's stick with Odegaard right 8 and use that stability to then introduce another element. So, whether you then put Rice in as a left 8 or you go with someone like a Trossard, you get that consistency, and then in the early months of the season, slowly you can build up Havertz's confidence, build up his understanding of the position. Don't throw him straight in at the deep end. That's one way of looking at it. The other way is to say, if he needs to adapt, if he needs to acclimatise, get him as many minutes as you can as swiftly as possible. And to be honest, I think that's what Mikel Arteta will use this pre-season period for. I think we'll see Havertz play a lot of minutes in these friendlies as Mikel Arteta tries to figure out, right, is he ready? Is he ready for the Premier League? And then when the Premier League games come around, he's got another decision to make, right? He'll give Havertz every chance in pre-season. If he doesn't think it's quite there, will he revert to something more familiar? Will he play Partey? Will he consider Vieira? Will he consider Smith-Rowe? Trossard, maybe, who was so good in the second half of last season. Could he go with Rice and Partey and Odegaard ahead? There are all these other options on the table. But when I look at the broader context, a player who's arriving from Chelsea, who, with a certain degree of baggage, has not really proven his quality as yet. And I think about the position we require him to fill, what we need from Havertz in this team. I think he is the most under pressure player to come into the squad this summer. Don't get me wrong, there are other players in the squad this summer who are under pressure. I mentioned Fabio Vieira there. I think that's arguably one. Rob Holding is fighting for his place in the squad. Emil Smith-Rowe needs to demonstrate that Mikel Arteta that he has a role to play in this team, that there's a position that suits him. But in terms of signings, the one we perhaps most need to hit the ground running is Havertz. And I think when you weigh up all the factors, he may be the one who's least likely to hit the ground running. And that is going to create some tension. And it'll be interesting to see how patient fans are prepared to be with him. I'm going to leave it there, but thanks for watching. As I say, do like, subscribe, much appreciated. Bye-bye.